Welcome to Change in the Coalfields podcast, and I am your guest host, communications coordinator for Coalfield Development. My name is Ashley Stinnett, and for this episode, we are doing a 2022 year in review recap, and I am joined today with our CEO, Brandon Dennison. And Brandon, you and I talked kind of before coming on the show, just as like a 1-2 highlight reel here, kind of going down the list. I mean, it was a huge year for Coalfield Development.
It really was. Yeah.
I've heard you say many times, man, I think this might have been our biggest year yet.
I really mean it too. I do.
It was huge. I know internally and I think externally for people who follow Coalfield Development, I think the folks out there saw how big of a year it was too.
I hope so. Yeah.
And so we're just going to rapid fire down through some of these huge moments, and I would also say huge wins, not just for the organization, but for our entire Appalachian region.
Yeah.
Because when we win, the folks are winning. Right?
Amen.
Number one, White House press conference day in Charleston.
Yeah.
That was fun. I've never been.
I would actually like to hear about that day from your perspective. So it turns out doing communications with the White House is like a thing.
It's very much a thing. And we are in to visualize for people that weren't there. I'm trying to like give everybody like this visual piece here. We're in what I would describe as a war room. Mm-hmm. It's a conference room.
Mm-hmm. The mayor of Charleston.
Mayor of Charleston's there. Mayor of Huntington joined us. Senator Joe Manchin, all these different dignitaries, all their staff. And we're looking at this giant Zoom screen. The White House staff is on there. Now, eventually, Biden is on there. But prior to Biden coming on, my phone is getting lit up by all these DC phone numbers.
From the White House?
Yeah, from the White House. And long story short, it was like, get your people in line.
And really what they're saying is, where's Joe Manchin?
Yeah, where's Joe Manchin? Where's Joe Manchin? And I'm like, I don't work for Joe. I don't know.
Joe Manchin sort of runs on his own schedule at his own pace.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. So, but it was a fun day. It was a very big day for the organization and for our region.
Yeah.
And being a part of that was definitely something that I'll never forget.
Same.
What's your thoughts? I mean,
yeah. So in case folks don't know, there was this national competition for innovative economic development called the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. 521 applicants nationally. And then there were 60 finalists. There were 21 winners, and we were announcing that day. The president himself announced 21 winners, and ours was the third largest award of the 21 winners, the Act Now Coalition, Appalachian Climate Technologies Coalition. And it was excitement, but it was also relief because, I mean, this process started in 2021, late 2021 with our first phase application. And then it ran all the way up through, Labor Day 2022. Just a very intense process because it wasn't just our one organization. We formed a whole coalition. We had Marshall WVU, we had Huntington Charleston. These are entities that don't typically collaborate and get along. And we're trying to hold this team together and compete against other universities and towns and organizations, very high-powered groups from bigger places across the country. And so it was exciting, but it was a relief. And also, the dignitaries are the ones that make the announcement. But that morning, this announcement happened to coincide with our annual Labor Day celebration. Yep. So that morning, I was down in Matewan in the UMWA Union Hall, with our crew members celebrating Labor Day. And that was really fitting too. I think ultimately the motivation to compete, like you said, was to uplift this region and to honor the workers and the families and the communities throughout this region, and to say it's our chance to have a shot, to compete and to show what we have and to contribute at our full potential. And that's what it was all about. And I think we tried to stay grounded in that.
Yeah, it was definitely a big day. And I remember logistically trying to get because at one point it was like the Zoom link, Charleston, Mate 1.
Yeah.
But it all worked out, and it was a cool moment, because I heard a lot of great feedback from the crew in Mate 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know you were like trying to get from Mate 1 to Charleston. But that's how we roll. It's, there's a lot of work to be done.
Make it work.
And we make it work.
Yeah.
So that was a huge day, and one that I'm hoping that we can replicate days like that in 2023.
We've set a high bar here.
Yeah, we have.
Hard to top, but we'll keep at it.
Next on the list, the Appalachian Social Enterprise Summit.
Yep.
Which in and of itself ended up being a very successful event.
Yeah, 200 plus
attendees right here at Marshall University. Lots of movers and shakers and lots of thinkers and doers in the social entrepreneurial world. And the challenge for us, and I don't want to, not challenge in a negative connotation, is just, what is a social enterprise?
Yep.
And
what does that even mean?
What does it even mean? Explaining that to people.
Yep.
And for me, I enjoyed, because it was still a little bit of an alien concept to me.
Sure.
Prior to coming on to Coalfield.
Sure.
And so for me, I had this moment where there are so many really good folks out there that have businesses that have done very admirable things, that have put in practice ideas like the triple bottom line, or even here locally that have hired people that have faced significant barriers to employment, and they don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start explaining this, it's like, wait a minute, I kind of think that I'm operating as a social enterprise.
Sure.
Or some of what
we wanted to define it broadly, not to exclude people in the social enterprise movement, but to include as many as possible.
So I thought that part of it was a really cool, not just the event itself and the speakers and the workshops and the things like that, but the learning moments for me, really dialing in on what that meant.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great event.
Yeah. And a sense of movement, really. I mean, all these, not just young people of all ages, but a lot of young people too, and very diverse set of entrepreneurs who believe in Appalachia and want to be entrepreneurs and leaders in Appalachia, and in a sense that that's possible and that's happening. And, the night before we had a farm to table dinner at West Edge. All the food was locally sourced through Refresh Appalachia. Shout out to Refresh, which has had a great year and produced a lot of good food and also good training to grow the growers, so to speak, and made that farm to table dinner possible. We had a graduation with some of our RAPS partners, which stands for Workforce Readiness and Professional Success. We had Gail Manchin on hand, the co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission, literally brought to tears by our RAPS graduates and hearing some of their stories and what they've overcome to get where they are. It's just dawning on me, Ashley, and this is not at all, I hope it doesn't come off as bragging, because that's not the goal, but I'm realizing the amount of high-level officials, cabinet secretaries. I mean, so we literally had a Zoom press conference with the President of the United States.
Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm toured and did a roundtable in West Edge. Head of the EDA, Assistant Secretary Castillo, came to West Edge. Senator Joe Manchin came to West Edge. We had an event with the mayor, Mayor Steve Williams, Mayor Amy Goodwin at West Edge. I did a roundtable literally in the White House with Gina Raimondo, Secretary of Commerce, with Brian Deese, the chair of the Economic Development, National Economic Council. Deb Holland did a roundtable with Deb Holland, Secretary of the Interior in Charleston. It all in 1 year. We've had a lot of dignitaries at West Edge, but this was the first year we've had Secret Service agents in West Edge. And again, it speaks to what the Coalfield development team, trainees, crew members, crew chiefs are doing day in and day out. It's really making a difference, and people are taking notice. Yeah. And we're growing the map.
Yep. Yep.
And it's going to grow exponentially in the coming years. So the summit, and I should have clarified, the farm to table, they kind of go hand in hand in a way. That was a packed house the night before.
Yep.
And the food was great. And the fact that Refresh, what was it, like 90% of the food kind of came from Refresh.
It did. Yep, sure did.
That was a huge win for them. They've had a great year too.
Absolutely.
So kind of going backwards here, the kind of third on the list was to back up in earlier 2022, the February press conference. And I think the reason why this was so significant is because up until that point, you had talked about and communicated this huge thing, this Build Back Better regional challenge, and how we're bringing all these partnerships on board, and how we're going to, and I'm just going to say, we're going to do the impossible by bringing the two cities together and the two major universities. Mm-hmm. And because growing up in Wayne County / Cabell County, Huntington, not too far from you, even though we didn't know each other, I think you and I were pretty well aware there's always been this odd Huntington-Charleston divide that has existed. And of course, there's been a Marshall
rivalry.
Yeah, there's been, and a Marshall WVU. Same thing.
Yep.
And for me, looking at it through this lens of knowing that, growing up and knowing that, and then at the February press conference, again, it's packed out. We really weren't sure the numbers we'd have on that. Mm-hmm. And, all the media is there, and in walks the Charleston mayor, the Huntington mayor. Here's Gordon Gee, here's Brad Smith. And it was a really surreal moment because all these people in the same room, now they're playing on the same team.
Yep. And by the way, that team is climate technology. I mean, from the Coalfields of West Virginia, we're saying we're going to lead on climate resilience, climate technology, not because, we're against coal, but because we think we can be more than just that one thing. And
acting out.
A lot of people used historic, and I don't think that was an overly dramatic term. It was a historic day. And I had folks in the audience, tell me, they said, it felt like something shifted, that, what community economic development in West Virginia looked like before that press conference in February of 22 and what it looked like after. It was a changed game. And I think the fast forward to the Labor Day press conference with the President of the United States, that would prove that statement true. Community economic development, it's a changed ball game, and it's a bigger level of impact than ever before. And I'm so proud that Coalfield Development got to lead that. And, the analogy we really hit on that day was let's be a flock of geese and not a barrel of crabs. And this idea that, when they're on the ground, geese and crabs actually act very similar. Geese fight at each other, they squawk, they hiss, they spit at each other. And crabs in a barrel, if you've ever seen them, they basically, if one tries to get out, they pull it back down. The difference being the geese, once they set a direction, they go way further together than they ever do alone. They achieve a 70% increase in the efficiency of how fast and far they can fly because of the aerodynamics of their V formation. And if one gets sick or gets tired or falls back, others fall back and support them, and they go as a team, whereas the crabs just keep pulling each other back down in a barrel. And the tie-in's obvious. I think in West Virginia, a lot of times we're not a big enough state to fight against each other, but that's what we do. We keep pulling each other back down in the barrel. And finally it felt like we're on the same team. We're moving the same direction. We're going to go further together than we would apart.
In 2022, our theme was history. Moving into 2023, it's listening.
Yep.
And I think, we've talked about really getting out among the folks on the ground level next year. It feels like step one is done, but now the real work kind of begins.
I think that's right, Ashley. I think we set an intention. Every year we have a planning retreat in December, and I do a lot of contemplation and reflection and really think through setting an intention and a theme to guide the planning for next year. So this year was history, and we made history. And this year is listening. And that really ties to a desire related to Act Now, but really all of our work. I don't want to just get another grant, and have the dignitaries announce the grant. And then, community members not even know what that means or where that money went. And that's sort of how the grant making process goes. There's so much jargon and there's so much sort of fancy talk, and it's opaque. It's not very transparent, and it's hard people don't trust that just because there's a headline about a grant, it's actually going to make a difference in their life. And I'm determined with Act Now and really with everything we do at Coalfield, it's not going to be just another grant. We're going to see tangibly jobs created, lives improved, buildings revitalized, businesses started, investment flowing into the region. So I don't want just people to say, oh, that's good. I really want to earn people's trust and buy-in to become a part of this. And I don't think we can do that until we really deeply listen and understand the perspectives of where everyone's coming from, what their pain points are, what their anger, maybe what their source of anger are, what their hopes and what their dreams are, and value systems. And, I think Coalfield, we've always been a listening organization, but I want to go deeper and more intentional and hear more voices than ever before and listen more deeply than ever before and truly just get deeply rooted and connected throughout the hills and hollers of Southern West Virginia. So we can build a sense of building this new economy together. Not that we're getting a new economy built for us, but that we're the ones building it for ourselves on our own terms.
And I've heard you talk about, it's not about that smokestack approach.
Yeah, we're going to build this ourselves from the bottom up.
Yeah.
We're not going to beg other corporations to come here, and we're not going to sell them the farm to get them to come here. We're going to start with what we have and who we have and go from there.
Yep. It's a big challenge, but also it seems to me like that Coalfield has faced pretty big challenges and overcome. And talking about the Act Now Coalition and the Build Back, winning the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, it's pretty big. I mean, people may not really be able to understand just how big of a challenge that is to bring so many people together for one common purpose and deliver a win like that. That's going to translate into a better atmosphere for everybody around.
Yeah, for the whole region's economy.
Yeah.
And again, I think the reason we were able to lead that as Coalfield Development, it's grounded in how innovative our work has been to date and the work that our team achieved. So in reflecting on the history we've made in 2022, Marilyn Wren, Cindy Manning, the program team who were right at my right arm throughout this whole process. We mentioned some Refreshes wins. Revitalize has had a phenomenal year. We finished the Victorville renovation project, 24 units that used to be the number one liability in Hamlin, West Virginia. Drugs, trouble, eyesore. Now it's an asset again. And it's a vibrant community where kids can have a good, healthy upbringing. And it's improving property values instead of draining property values.
And now Fort Gay High School.
And now we moved on to Fort Gay High School, a building that sat empty as people have despaired to see the most beautiful building in town sit empty. And now we're going to bring it back alive. It's going to be local people that are going to do it.
And it's really when you literally look at that, it's like the nucleus of the town.
Yep.
It's even up on the mount. I mean,
Yep. Think about, speaking of High Wall, a former mountaintop removal site, using regenerative agriculture to pretty much bring it back alive, make it a productive part of the ecosystem again. Very innovative work out in the elements. Again, local people, Mingo County, former coal miners doing it.
And shout out to Jacob for getting a sold out, would have been more had not the weather been funky, solar training.
Yep. On that same,
yeah.
Former mountaintop site.
Yeah.
Jacob
solar
Conservation also launched our reuse corridor, reusing, reselling materials throughout the region, taking dilapidated buildings that would typically go in a landfill, upcycling those back into productive use, keeping them out of the landfills. I mean, we've done more on the environmental sustainability front this year than ever before. Shout out to Mountain Mindful. Best year ever. best, most sales and we've had in several years. I mean, we thought during COVID, it was a dire situation for a retail-based social enterprise. We stuck it out, and now we're coming through the other end, got the Bridge Day contract, made it happen for Bridge Day, the sole contract for that. So West Edge came alive. The arts at West Edge had nearly 2,000 people total attend arts events at West Edge throughout the year. Acquired a new building in Logan. We're going to become active in the Logan community, doing a lot of community engagement there. So a lot of listening has happened, will keep happening, but Coalfield, it's a lot of action too. We're about tangible, real work. And that's what we're going to carry into 23.
And, it does seem like the old saying, the rising tide lifts all the ships. And whether it's the social enterprises or the programs, we've all been lifted.
Yep.
And the people, the people, like you mentioned earlier, the trainees, the graduates. I know you wanted to mention.
Yeah, I mean, we had some graduations this year for multiple Coalfield champions. Jeremiah, Jaron, Heather. Think about, to be a Coalfield champion, someone's gone from unemployed or underemployed to college graduate or some sort of advanced certification training, like a licensed electrician, which is not an easy exam to pass.
Right.
They've worked here for 2 years plus. They've become a leader on their crew. They've earned, in each of these, I think I'd earned 15, 20 plus professional certificates to show, the various trainings that they've done. They've completed our personal development curriculum. They've started to lead their fellow crew members through that. So we talk about, rebuilding the Appalachian economy from the ground up. It sounds like this fancy tagline, but it's actually happening. It's happening on a former mountaintop removal site. It's happening in an old abandoned school. It's happening with these people who are overcoming tremendous challenges to become leaders in their community. And it's a hopeful story. Keeps us going.
The bar has been set high.
It has been. How do we keep that up?
2023. It really does feel like that. How do you repeat as Super Bowl champions?
Email Tom Brady.
Yeah. But the good news is we've got the coach, we've got the playbook, and we just have to execute the game plan.
Yep.
And
I'm always a sucker for a football analogy.
I know you are.
The podcast has been fun too. And I thank you to Marshall University.
Yeah.
For the chance to do this in the studio has been a real highlight and taking the podcast to the next level.
And this is a great studio.
It's a great studio.
Shout out to Paige, Ben,
Even though we did
Ashley.
know, for some reason we can't, the camera is a little bit wobbly. So you're saying it sort of looks like we're on a ship here today.
Yeah, we're on the USS 12 pole or the USS Coalfield, navigating the rigid waters of the 12 pole, the mighty 12 pole.
So newest social enterprise is going to be a 12 pole cruise ship.
Yes. There is
Ashley's your captain.
Oh, I'll tell you what, if I'm captaining that ship, there better be a lot of life preservers, especially on the 12 pole. Because as a kid, I grew up in East LA, not to be Lavalette, not to be confused with the Dodgers country.
Is that really what you all called it?
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. We had East LA, we had West LA. I think that West LA was more like Dixon. I think East LA was more like Beach Fork.
Yeah.
And but see, I had the benefit of like being right in the middle on 152. So I was like right there. And played in the 12 pole.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking for crawdads, fishing.
12 pole's beautiful.
I mean, yeah, and the thing about 12 pole is you have certain parts that get really narrow. Mm-hmm. You could almost like jump across. Mm-hmm. And then there's some parts that look, it's almost like a small river.
Yep.
The way that it looks.
I have seen people kayak the 12 pole.
Oh yeah,
actually.
Absolutely. Still don't actually know how it all connects though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am excited about 2023. I know there's going to be a lot of challenges. But I think that's good. I think it's healthy to always be.
Sorry, the 12 hole is beautiful, but for folks who've never seen it, it's a creek, not a river. So when we talk about a creek,
it's just imagine
a candlelit
cruise ship on a creek
through Wayne County,
which is like 4 or 5 knotted together 2x4s, maybe not sinkable.
I can't let it go.
Somebody in the woodshop crew could make this.
We can make this happen.
We can make this happen. This is the problem when I have these
live podcast.
Yeah,
we'll live stream a podcast from the candlelit dinner on the 12th hole.
I'm noticing a theme. The more absurd the idea, the more we want it to make reality.
Brandon gets. Yeah.
This is like the second.
We'll invite Joe Biden to.
Oh yeah, cruising on the 12th hole.
Secret Service and all. We can accommodate. We've learned how to accommodate.
Yeah, I feel like that event would probably be having an event on the 12th hole.
Yeah.
You know, some people have like
you could die then, pretty much, right? You would circle back to your childhood.
Yeah. Oh, I would, yeah. We found a coffin one time.
In the 12th
no joke,
hole?
Yeah. This was in Lavalette, near the used to be like advanced. It was right when you go past what is now Freedom Gun and Pawn. That the light on the left at
Tutors,
the railroad.
You got a Tutors. You got a Freedom Gun and Pawn.
Railroad tracks.
I mean, this is so West Virginia. We got Freedom.
Guns, biscuits.
Actually, first you have a mining equipment company.
Yeah.
Semenco.
Yeah, I think so.
Volunteer Fire Department, Freedom Gun and Pawn, Tutors Biscuits, and on your right you have a food fair, which is a local grocery chain.
Right.
McDonald's, which every town's got one.
Yeah. So there's a connection here. Guns, biscuits, and then a coffin. So there might be some, I don't know if that's like so I'm going down through there and now at that time there wasn't a gun store, but it was biscuits, railroad track, and then there's a coffin. And it was like partially submerged.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And a buddy of mine were terrified. Of course, we're probably like 12 or 13 and we had to investigate it because how do you not investigate? But it was. I have no idea how it got there.
Open, closed?
It was like partially opened.
Weird.
It was empty.
Okay.
But it's too bad because it could have been a great Netflix documentary.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just weird, but that's the stuff you remember. I remember walking the railroad tracks with a buddy of mine to do Geno's. You got to have a Geno's.
Another West Virginia institution.
And they had a 2 for Tuesday. And I remember staying with a buddy. He lived, again, right on 52. We'd walk the railroad tracks to go down there and get 2 for Tuesday Geno's pizzas. It's just it's the little things, man, that you remember.
Yeah, and that quality of life that we're not trying to change Appalachia into something that it's not. Appalachia's a unique place and it's distinctive.
Yeah.
And we love our hills and hollers. We love to play in the creek. We want to keep our local businesses. And that's when we say rebuilding the Appalachian economy, it's rebuilding it on our own terms. The Appalachian economy has been built before, largely built by outside interest on our backs. And the new Appalachian economy, we want to build Appalachian people from the bottom up in a way that honors who we are, honors our beautiful hills and hollers, and sets us up for the long term for our kids and grandkids and great grandkids to play in those creeks, run those hillsides, and have a good quality of life. And I think, in all seriousness, we took a jump towards that vision this year in a big, big historic way.
2023 will be year 13.
Year 13. Lucky 13.
Lucky 13. So this has been fun.
Yeah.
I think the podcasts will continue to grow, get better, and who knows, maybe hit the road on it. Although I keep saying hit the road on the podcast, but this studio is, I don't know, I want to leave it.
No, maybe just a couple special things, but
yeah,
we again, thank you to Marshall University for access to the studio.
Thanks for letting me sit in the captain's seat on occasion too, and get to get some Q&A from you too.
See you next year.
See ya.